Good evening YouTube, it's John the Old Geek and I'm reviewing things again. This video is about a Call of Cthulhu scenario entitled The Curious Case of Bare-Knuckle Bill. This scenario is the first in the Hudson and Brand book, which was published by Stygian Press in 2017 through a successful Kickstarter. The whole idea of the book itself is that it provides a home base for the investigators, a wealth of background info and some stunning maps. It's all designed for Call of Cthulhu's Gaslight setting, which is based on Victorian era London. Now, of course, for the uninitiated, Victorian era London, or more specifically with regards to Cthulhu Gaslight, the 1890s, which is late Victorian, is the time of the infamous Jack the Ripper. Also, it's Sherlock Holmes, which both combine for perfect inspiration for a bit of Call of Cthulhu. The Ripper case itself is adapted in the background info in the Hudson and Brand book. It's been rewritten as if Hudson and Brand themselves had been doing the investigating. But this review isn't meant to be a review of the full Hudson and Brand book. I'm just going to focus on the scenario itself, the Curious Case of Bare-Knuckle Bill. It's the first of the two in the book, and it's designed to be a short introductory investigation for the investigators and to clear up the loose ends regarding what actually happened to Albert Henry Hudson and Ulysses Victor Brand, who have both disappeared. This scenario is particularly fresh in my mind as my group have just finished playing it this Friday just gone over Roll20. It took just under 2 sessions of about 3 hours each, so it was relatively short. Now, visually, the whole book is lush. It's with bold and colourful maps, and there's tons of evocative artwork. It really does look beautiful. But all the presentation is very much surface fluff. What is it like underneath? Is the adventure itself any good? Is it cohesive? Let's find out. A young boy called Albie Barrett pleads for help finding his friend. The investigators find him on their doorstep. He's wet and bedraggled and looks tired and looks like he's been crying. His friend is a bit of a local celebrity boxer by the name of Bare-Knuckle Bill. Now, this is clearly a very simple hook to get the party started. They're supposed to feel sorry for the small tearful child. Quite simple. Bill went missing after losing a fight, and it is up to the investigators to track him down and unravel what happened to him. Firstly, track is the right word, as this scenario, as written, is firmly on the rails. In order to review it, I was trying to run it as close to the book as possible as well, and it was quite frustrating regarding both how little deviation was expected and how little support is given for when the players inevitably do try to deviate from the intended path. Now, there are going to be some spoilers, so if you don't want to hear too much about the adventure, if you're intending on playing through it, go away. If you're a keeper who's intending to run it, stay with me. Unfortunately, my group played it fairly poorly. I'm sure they won't mind me saying that. Despite much prompting from me, they managed to plough straight into danger multiple times without even a hint of research or planning. Most of them died, one fled insane, so in that sense the scenario did its job, but it did so without feeling especially scary or even otherworldly. It was just violent. They approached it in a far too direct manner, but then it is a very direct scenario and it suffers for it. Basically, it is a very railroady scenario, and there are bits and pieces that they're intended to find along the way. But if, as written, if the party miss some of those opportunities to find information out, there's no real chance to go back and rediscover it. So once they were stuck deep in the sewers on the way to their deaths, because I was playing it pretty much as written, that was my intention, they couldn't go back and rectify that problem. There is also a bit of a lack of handouts in the adventure, as in none. Any good investigation needs handouts. Players love them, and they add greatly to the feel of the play. Another major flaw, especially for us as we were playing it online, is that the room descriptions are printed on the maps rather than just having simple numbers referring to descriptions in the text of the adventure. When my players went into the cellar, Roll20 revealed cellar in big letters on the map. I tried editing some of the biggest giveaways out of the maps, but I gave up because it was just too time consuming. Here's one of the maps now. You look at it, it gives away too much visually in order to really hold back any secrets, and even when I blocked out where it said Scander's Den, the players still knew there was something blocked out underneath. Also, too many locations do lack a decent description. The adventure text manages to be quite verbose in places, while at the same time it lacks any real tangible detail for the keeper to develop. The general poor structure of the text leads to disorganised page flipping, which is sadly a common issue with a lot of Cthulhu scenarios. You'd think they'd have perfected it by now, but no, it's written in too much of a narrative manner. I want more focused description. It's easier for me to improvise based on more solid sort of nuggets of info rather than flowery text. Physical clues in the adventure are hidden behind too many roles, especially locksmith. There is locked door after locked door. I know it's realistic, but there are simply too many of them, and I would argue it encouraged my players to be too direct in their approach. They bust open a door and they focused on that area, found a passage down to the sewers and went through it, rather than spending more time trying to explore to find clues past the other locked doors. The idea, though, of the Curious Case of Bare-Knuckle Bill is good. I mean, it is a fairly simple premise for an adventure, but the setting is robust enough. The story is simple, but the balance of the adventure just feels out of kilter. There's way too much focus on the more mundane locations where the action happens, and not enough on the dark and twisted places where the horror occurs. In particular, the club section at the end to me feels far too big. It would have been better if it finished up in a small seedy whorehouse, and more page count in the adventure was given to the section in the sewers, which was much more interesting, had much more potential, but just felt lacking. Ultimately, I was quite disappointed with this adventure. I probably didn't run it perfectly, though I was trying to stick to it as it's written. My players ploughed through it headlong without really pausing to think, and the adventure itself, as written, was just too direct. I love the Hudson and Brand book in general because it's such a great idea, given my home base in Victorian era London, which is my favourite era for Call of Cthulhu because I can associate with it more easily than I can with the 1920s USA. I'm British. I don't know London all that well, but I've grown up learning about British history. I can do the British accents. It's much easier for me than my sad attempts at American drawls. I'm terrible at those, but I can do Yorkshire accent, and I'm from Birmingham, so I can talk like round by way. And Cockney accent, get out of my pub, and all that sort of stuff. They're simple enough. Okay, that Cockney accent was dreadful, but I do apologise for that. For me, it is a pity that the first adventure in the book feels more of a slightly insipid combat fest than a genuine investigation. I do hope the second adventure is better. We'll see when we come to it. I'm going to give this adventure a slightly below average 4 out of 10. It's a bit of a disappointment. Sorry, Stygian Press. Could do better.